Okay, good evening. My name's Alan, for anybody who doesn't know me, Alan Parry, and I am one of the two founding editors at the Broken Spine or Broken Spine Arts, alongside Paul Robert Mullen. He's an old school friend of mine. Last February, I think it was, we published Broken Spine Artist Collective first edition, and we were very fortunate. In fact, it was right on the cusp of this worldwide pandemic that we've all experienced ever since. I think it was February 20th, something like that. And we were very fortunate to have a launch party in person. We had a little room above a cinema in our hometown here in Southport near Liverpool in England. And I was introduced that night to a few new writers, people who I wasn't fully aware of. We had a couple of people who were in the magazine and a couple of others who Paul knew in the community. One of those writers and readers that evening was Ellie. She read from her collection Alcoholic Betty, and she also read from her collection Self-Portraits. And it was that evening that that Ellie reading the dual language work really sort of drew me to her writing. And I've heard Ellie say in interviews that she has pestered us, knocked on the door a few times, but I'm not entirely certain that that's true. I think that I have wanted to work with Ellie for a long time and put out something akin to that, because I don't think that Self-Portrait is long enough, and I wanted more of that Frida Kahlo work. I wanted her to go back and explore it again. We did that this year, and that is what has resulted in The Mask, which is our third chapbook on the third solo author chapbook on the Broken Spine. We're very, very pleased to have it. Ellie, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, thank you for that lovely introduction. And yeah, that night in Southport in the, pouring rain and on the coast of England, I got to go to this incredibly magical event. There were a ton of people there. The reading was phenomenal. The community was phenomenal, and I'll never forget it. And yeah, it was right before the world kind of shut down. So it was a really special moment to hang on to that I think fondly of. I have loved working with Broken Spine Arts. We share a very similar vision that we maintain an animal heart, which is, being kind to our authors and lifting them up and promoting them and making it a safe place to publish and to be and to share your work and never feel intimidated or like your voice is being changed, or it's just a very author-centric model. So I'm really proud that our presses can kind of be sister presses in a way and help each other and support each other online and as authors. So working with Alan and Paul has been amazing as well. I want to thank you, Emily Zolo, for co-hosting this with us tonight. The Thetford Libraries have supported me since the moment I met Emily, which is now a good 10 years ago, and have hosted my events and keep my books in the library and promoted me and supported me in the community tirelessly and loyally. And I appreciate that so much. And all of you here, friends and family, to be here and come and celebrate this with me, like, means the world to me. It's a lot to take time out of your busy life and day and come do this, but it really does. It means absolutely the world to me that you would come. So thank you all for being here. I'm very happy.
Indeed, I would like to echo what Elisabeth just said about yourself there, Emily, and what you're doing at the library. It's wonderful that you are promoting somebody local to you, and one of my authors, one of the Broken Spines authors. That's a wonderful thing to be able to say. And again, to the wider room here, to everybody who has managed to attend, we'd love to be doing these things in person. But even when we can, I don't think we will walk away from doing these things online. I think that's really important. And it took for something like the pandemic to happen, certainly for me and probably for many others, to recognize that we had this technology all along. So why weren't we doing it to begin with?
Right. Yeah, we didn't, because you can have a launch in person, and if the weather's crummy or whatever's going on and 5 people show up, like it's still a great launch, but it's 5 people and they're all from your town. And this way I have my friends from all over the world here
Ellie,
today.
the next task for us is to combine the two. We'd like to do
There we go. That's the next.
that.
Oh,
Perhaps I need
maybe
somebody
next
a little
book.
bit more tech savvy than myself.
Well, when I come back to England and we do an event, we'll do it then. Yeah. When we
Excuse me, we'll give it a
with
go.
the Broken Spine Collective, with the artist collective. That would be cool.
Indeed. Okay. We're all here for one reason, I suppose, aren't we? And that's to listen to each other read some poetry. And I think it's probably best if we start with Elisabeth. And she wants to talk us through a couple of the poems. And then maybe we can open up to a Q&A. I'll invite some questions from you, from the floor, and then we can read if we're happy to.
Yeah, I'd love for people who want to read to hear poems from all of our friends here. That would be wonderful. I always think that's a very important part of a reading party like this, because I want to hear your work as much as you might want to hear mine. So
Excellent.
yeah.
And here we are. I'm going to pause the recording very, very quickly.
All right.
Delighted to be here, finally.
And we're back in the room. Okay, Elisabeth, I will leave it to you to decide what you want to read from this collection.
Yeah, it's always hard to choose because I like a lot. I love reading all of them, really. As you guys know, this is a book about Frida Kahlo's artwork and a tribute to her. I've always been fascinated with, enamored by, and in awe of Frida's incredible artwork, her her perseverance in the face of severe lifelong physical pain, emotional pain, trauma through her marriage. She went through so much and she never stopped painting. She painted up till she died, from bed, laying on her back with a canvas above her. And I started writing about her in a couple different situations where I was on my back healing from various physical trauma and mental trauma. And writing about her art, kind of helped me get out of that victim feeling of, oh, poor me, this happened to me, this is so awful, and especially writing about, after I had a miscarriage, writing about her paintings that depicted her many miscarriages and abortions, of which she had many and were often life-threatening, and she was never able to carry a baby to term because of her severe accident at age of 18. So I love writing for her, about her. I love trying to invoke her spirit and her voice. I work really hard at it, and you can tell when I read them how much I love doing it. And it was so great working with Paul, because he just kind of let me run with that and, kind of do what I needed to do to have her come through. And it was just we had a wonderful editing process, the two of us. So there's one I haven't really read before that I think I'd like to read. It's one of the first ones I ever wrote for this book, and it's called My Dress Hangs Here, based on her painting My Dress Hangs There, which is a really famous one. You can see her dress on a clothesline in between Mexico and the United States. And there's just a lot going on. I'm not sure I understand the painting entirely, but this was my interpretation of it. So it's called My Dress Hangs Here. She painted that in 1933. Of course it does. At 6 a.m., the men bring my innards from a low truck with battered rims. They carry them on their backs into the rear of El Restaurante. They are the parts of animals. I can make out intestines and other salchicha-type shapes that will be cooked later to perfection, not resembling anything como mi muerte feo. Such a pretty dress. I wear it to my quinceañera. I wear it to meet the gringos in San Francisco. ¿Y por qué no? Me quieren así, me desean así, y además mi señor le guste. The part of me which is not hanging here, not divided, but was divided, as the house and sisters and the mujer y su azul mirada. I wonder if he would like me to be Russian. I wonder what happened to the indígenas in Cholula. I wonder if I had a day to myself, what would I do with it? If I could walk, say, to market o a la iglesia, en mi vestida, como una nativa, que hermosa, I would watch the men bring the parts of bodies into the back store of el restaurante, pieces of my ears for pozole. I might even come in, sit down, and eat myself for breakfast. Thank you. Thank you. I think I would like to do, I'd like to do the first poem of it, just because it's so beautiful to read and I've had some practice reading it. So this one is from her painting Two Nudes in a Forest, which she did in 1939. And she painted it for her lover, Dolores Del Rio, who is a Mexico City movie star. And so here we go. Para Dolores. No somos mala amora. Touch me, lover. I long to feel your hand touching my neck. Drape my arm between your legs as if a last bastion for ease. I feel the arch of your lithe little foot, delicate as a root, securing itself to my knee. It will not be ripped away, will not succumb to the earth falling away into the mouths of men. They impose their vine of phallic truth, reaching for the sky, strangling the earth, touching nothing of consequence except for themselves. Flash of red, flash of evil, according to whom? God, the devil, men, los señores, well-educated terrorists who would rather let the world bleed from between our thighs rather than consider that I might prefer your touch, your kiss. Lithe tongues which perform the tango each time we enter the forest, each time we dance, intertwine chalice to chalice. Once touching, we are divine. The orgasms will be red. We own nothing, no sublimation. I like that one. I think Frida would like that one. She'd say, how sassy, you know, because although she, was very loyal to Diego and very, she had many male lovers, she also had many female lovers, and she never hid her bisexuality. And, she's a hero to me, to think that she could be like that in the 1920s, 30s, 40s Mexican society is really astounding. That she studied communism, that she supported Trotsky, and that she cheated on her husband. He cheated on me, so screw it. I'm gonna go have some fun too. I mean, she just refused to stay in the box of mujer in Mexico and be a little housewife. She wasn't going to do that. This one is the title poem of the book, La Máscara, The Mask. She wrote this in 1945. So this was very near the end of her life. I think she died in 51, maybe. The Mask painting, if you want to Google it, it's the only self-portrait of hers that actually doesn't really show her face. There's truly a mask, and she has this weird purple hair. It's so different than anything else, any other of her self-portraits, that it's really striking. And so I tried to interpret why she put on a mask finally, or had she been wearing a mask all along and was showing us the real Frida at that moment. I'm not sure. La Máscara. Sí que era diferente cuando estabas tú. That's a quote from Marco Antonio Solís. That feeling when life is ending, when you know it's time to go, when your eyes have gone yellow, cut holes in the retinas and turn them to blue. Oh, that house. I've told Ellie to make a new stanza here, to describe how I have died in that flowering house, the way in which women have flowered in that house. At 18, I was punctured the way a sword enters the bowl, and yet I did not die. I did not die when you fucked my sister either, querido mío. And yet, I will never succumb to anything but my own body. I wear this because I feel ugly. I wear ribbons to cut the blood flow, to incite the beauty. My dog still loves me. The punctures remain, and I owe so much money. Make a new stanza here, Ellie. Make them into cold rooms. Lock the doors. Let's hide inside the liquor and the pain. Hacemos algo. Amor a la mexicana. When Alejandro left you, deformed, a young woman, and now deformed in the mind. I will leave before he leaves me once more. Diego, if you love me, come make love to me in heaven. Come, mi amor, and fuck me in my mind. Thank you, everybody.
That's wonderful stuff, Ellie.
Thank you, Helen.
I'm always amazed by how a lady like Frida and yourself to an extent as well can endure such pain and remain so strong. And I think
keep
that
going. Right.
indeed,
Because
yeah.
what's the other choice? The other choice is implosion, suicide, self-annihilation,
And I think you
she wasn't willing
genuinely
to do any
capture
of
that.
those things, and she didn't not kill herself because she had children. A lot of times that's, for me, when I've been very, very low in my life, my children are my protective factor, the psychiatrists love to call it. She's not going to do anything because she has children. That's true. Frida didn't have children. So I think, what was her protective factor? Her animals, she was surrounded herself by animals all over her compound, her house, her gardens, deer, little, monkeys everywhere, birds, dogs, everything. And I think those were her children. I really do. I think they sustained her in ways that she needed to feel like a mother and a caregiver. And I do write many about her portraits of her with her animals. I'll do one of those in a minute. But yeah, I think her, because the physical pain she endured was extraordinary. If you think about the amount of surgeries she had, living with a casted corset with metal ribs, and to try to sustain that for months at a time is just unfathomable to me. I think of a body cast, but a very primitive one that had like iron ribs. And it just must have been brutal, and on your back, all on your back. All right, so this one is called For Inhabitants of Mexico City, and I think that's the title of the painting as well, if you want to look it up. It's in a Zocalo. It's, a skeleton and a yellow guy and a little girl on the ground and a kind of Aztec goddess of fertility. It's a very interesting painting.
For
I
anybody
think,
who does have a hard copy of the collection or an e-copy, there is a little glossary at the back.
yeah,
That
there's a
will
guide.
guide you toward the photograph, or
Yeah.
the paintings even. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I think she saw herself represented in this as the little girl on the ground. For Inhabitants of Mexico City from 1938. We have no toes, my nurse and I. Beautiful right breasts juxtapose the lack of a mother, the masculine square shoulder. The shadow spreads across me. Oye, Judas, ¿puedes darme un poco de espacio? Just because Diego likes you near, sick bastard, thinks it's so odd and funny, whispers in my ear, ha ha ha, mira, mi reina, fíjate mi vida, the men are all here, commanders of the Zocalo, las mujeres, but figments of the past, meek figurines of future abandonment. To have had a child, to have kept my toes intact, my uterus intact, I would have had to praise the easel of a man. Lied to Jesus at least 30 times, estuviera sido traidora a la Xochiquetzal. And I would not do this, jamás, to her. The woman who fed me from her breasts, who removed with knives her own toes as an act of feminine solidarity in 1934. It's just not fair for children to suffer from such horrible nightmares, to play with the dust and rocks and sell gum, while the sovereign masculine gods don't lift a child from the earth to soothe her. The female has been rendered useless, al medio de este zócalo integro, amputated, inert, punctured, flaccid uterus.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments too. I appreciate it a lot. Trying to think.
We
Any
posted last week on our website, Ellie, an interview with a British poet, or actually a Caribbean diasporic British poet, Malika Booker. Malika and I, when we spoke during the interview, we had quite an in-depth conversation about stage poetry, performance poetry, and poetry on the page. And Malika always spoke heavily about craft. But there is no doubt for me, as a non-Spanish speaker, that this poetry is elevated in performance. However, it is fine-tuned on the page and fine-honed on the page as well. And I think that's an important thing to say and point out.
Yeah.
Go on.
It wants to be read. It wants to be read out loud. And I don't think there's any poems in this book that I don't enjoy reading out loud, because it shows me that I've meshed the Spanish in if I can read it out loud seamlessly, and that's the only way I really know if I've achieved it or not, so it's a good check for me to read them. Because looking at them on the page, that's always not always evident if you don't hear the sounds. So a big piece of her life that I looked at in this book was her affair with Leon Trotsky. He came to Mexico and was on the run. He was being hunted to be arrested or murdered, and she hid him in her parents' home for some months, and his wife. And during that time, she and he had a sexual affair that Diego eventually found out about, the wife found out about, and Leon and his wife left, and he was subsequently found and murdered when he left that protection. So I think that was a guilt she lived with the rest of her life, that she left him vulnerable to the assassination. And she was jailed for a time to be questioned in hiding him and in his murder. And she never gave in and told them anything. And her sister Christina went to get her out of jail. The one who had the affair with Diego came and saved her from jail. So it's a very complex and, full of drama story. But I think she loved Leon and looked up to him very much. And I tried to portray that. This is a painting that was called Self-Portrait, dedicated to Leon Trotsky, 1937. It's a picture of her between two white curtains. It looks very beautiful, very soft. It's a painting that you can tell she wants to feel beautiful in it for him, to give him that beauty of hers. Between the curtains. It hurts me to write about how beautiful I was when you loved me. I am not that woman anymore. Standing there, softly radiating, any moment a bird could fly from my lips and land in your mouth. Oh viejo, oh mi amante, the idea of you so much better than the sex, not as good as I dreamed of in reality. So I use our memory to invoke spite instead. Not for nothing, no, not for nothing, our love making, the old hands, the withered flesh, so tantalizing. A tener un hombre como tú at my heels, at my neck, to make someone so powerful succumb to my power, my allure, I, the curve of my breast. I will later paint myself for you with pink nipples erect, a communist corset, a hammer and sickle just for you, encompassing my ribs, my spine, my belly, my hips, for you to revere the idea that I wanted you as much as you wanted me. En realidad era yo la cosa para ganar, como que soy tan linda como la Virgen, imposible para sostener. I am the thing to covet. I am pura mujer.
Thank you very much, Ellie.
Thank you.
I think now might be a nice time to open the floor to some questions, if you're okay for answering them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do
So
some.
if you've got a microphone that works, feel free to put your hand up, or
Yeah, please.
we'll,
Anything. It doesn't
if
have
not,
to be about Frida either. It can be anything.
of course.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the process of writing poetry that's inspired by painting, and like how and the process of writing bilingual poetry, how you go about choosing, you know, what lines are in English and what lines are in Spanish, and just your whole process in this
Yeah.
work.
That's a great question. As far as the ekphrastic piece, I find that, you know, when I teach my ekphrastic workshop, you know, there's several parts that go into this. There's knowing your subject, of course. You need to, you know everything about them. You need to study their history. You need to read interviews, read biographies, all of that. You need to go into this a space with her. I need to go into a mindset where I'm in a room with her, where I'm enveloped in that painting, and it's all I'm experiencing is that painting. I can't have distractions. I can't have the TV on. I can't have my children around. It's really like a Zen-like place, and it's how I did the Sylvia Plath poems as well. It's almost like, you know, you want to go into this trance with your subject and just live with them. And when I'm writing one of these books, I kind of live in that world in and out the whole time, because I have to go check in and stay there, and stay engaged. And then you also have to bring yourself into ekphrastic work. I think some people would disagree with that, but I don't think it's a really genuine artistic piece if it doesn't end up being you and the painting and the artist. It's like a three-way triangle of the painting, what Frida thought, and what I think, and then merge them. And that's what I try. So that's what I try to do. And I find the best way to do it is to not use my like analytical brain too much, but to use the feeling, the emotion, the empathy I have for her, you know, to kind of let that part of my brain take over and not over edit or overthink. Just kind of let it happen and see what comes out on the page and figure it out later. But just to really kind of open that, study it, and then open an emotional floodgate that just lets it come. As far as the Spanish goes, I think in Spanish a lot. I sing in Spanish a lot. I have a lot of friends online that I keep my Spanish going. I've fought my whole life to become and then remain fluent in Spanish. Has been a lifetime of work. I feel like I finally figured out that this was the reason I fought to do that so hard. Because I was always like, why do I bother? I don't live in a Spanish speaking community. But I think it was so I could write these poems. And I don't think that this would be as authentic of a try to communicate as her, because I'm writing these in the first person, which is a bit audacious. But I don't think it would sound right to be like, and then Frida thought this, and then she did that. You know, it needed to be from the first person. And so if it had been only English, I think that would feel inauthentic. But really the Spanish will pop in and out by sound, as if I was writing a song and in that place there was a Spanish rhyme and it just happened. So it's not, I was never like, okay, I haven't used Spanish in a while, I should pop some in here. It was more just like a flow, and it would really just kind of happen. When Alan and I edited the book, we thought about, because we didn't want to add translations into this text because it's distracting, you know? And so we made a conscious decision to keep the Spanish on the smaller side so that the reader can follow even if they don't speak a word of Spanish, that I don't lose the reader with a whole stanza of Spanish. So that's why it's kind of sprinkled as it is. But
I would say that I think that it has to embellish, didn't it, rather than detract.
yes, right. I mean, we weren't promoting this or trying to write this as a bilingual book necessarily, you know, it's majority English, but I sure like the Spanish in there, and it makes it really fun to read.
It adds
And
authenticity.
yeah, and it's an extra challenge for me that I adore. I adore the challenge of trying to get the two languages in and have them merge successfully. Because it doesn't always work, and sometimes I have to go, oh, okay, that's a mess, you know. But I especially love it when I can do like even some slant rhyme with the Spanish and the English mixed, and you don't even really notice, hopefully, that I did so, but it's there, you know, and it flowed. That gets me really excited.
And
you.
it's so beautiful to listen to. It's really a treat.
Thank you so much.
And I think you strike a really nice balance. Like there's just enough for me, a non-Spanish speaker, like it increases this sense of mystery. I don't know what's going on in those parts of the poem, but it's not too much that I lose the thread.
That was the goal,
yeah.
that I don't lose you, that you
Mm-hmm.
hang on with me until I pop back, and and you just maybe took away an emotion from it, or a sense, I think poetry, like I'm a strong believer that you don't always have to know the entire story. What did the poet want to say? What were they trying to say? I think some of it can just be the enjoyment of the sound and the rhythm. It's like listening to a song, you don't understand the lyrics. You don't necessarily turn that song off. You still love it. You just don't quite know what they're saying. But I think we can trust a little bit like that and just enjoy through our senses. Not everything has to be so darn literal,
I think that's a lovely, comprehensive answer.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Have we got questions from anybody else in the room?
I have a question, maybe two questions. They're related. One is, the more you look at a painting, the more you see in it. So I'm wondering if you've written more than one poem about a single painting. And then I wonder if your language has changed over the years as you've absorbed these paintings more and more. Has that changed your language?
That's really good questions, Ray. Thank you so much for being here, my dear. I appreciate it a ton. So for the first question, yes, I have done on several of kind of my favorites of hers, like for example, The Wounded Deer. I have a poem about that in the first book in Self-Portrait, and I have a poem about that in this one, which I can read if you like later. Because yes, there's so many interpretations of that. And in the first one, it was kind of that's the one with her head on the body of the deer who's filled with arrows. In the first one, it was very much like I'm being hunted by men. I often equate like men hunting deer is the way I feel from like sexual abuse. I mean, there's a hunted feeling of trauma and abuse and sexual trauma. So the first poem was very much like that angle. And then this one, in this version, it's more about her baby deer, El Granizo, who was like her baby. And it's more forlorn and thinking about when I'm gone, don't forget my animals and how much I loved them. So it's more of a tribute to her little deer that she loves so much. So it changed very much. That's the first example I can think of that.
On that question, we have two poems in the collection inspired by the same painting, don't we? We have The Mask Volume 1, which you've read. Perhaps now would be a nice time to read The Mask Volume 2.
The Volume 2, sure. Let's see if I can grab that. Silly me, I have it up in two places and that's not the best. Okay, hold on. I'll find it in this one. Let me come back to read that. I need to open a different document. My apologies. What was the second half of your question, Ray? I can do while I'm looking for it. I can think about.
It had to do with whether your language has changed over the years. The more you've looked at the paintings, the more you've absorbed them.
Yes. Okay. So I would say it has grown in maturity, in elevated with vocabulary from translating Self-Portrait. My dear friend Jorge Montero Calderon, who's Costa Rican and has a huge knowledge and love for Frida, translated that fully into Spanish, and he and I worked really, really closely over a period of like 3 months to do that, or maybe more. And my Spanish just grew a lot. because he wanted me to understand what he was translating to make sure he had it right. So he made me like read all of them out loud in Spanish, which was painful and hard to do, because that's just a different, Spanish poetry is different than Spanish conversation on the street in Mexico. It's a whole nother world. So I would say my Spanish went from being survival of just being able to chat with somebody and not sounding like an idiot, to actually understanding some of the trends of Mexican poetry. They do things really differently. They have different formatting. It's more formal than ours still. So mine seems very contemporary and very kind of audacious to some Mexicans who are still embracing more formal trends, structure-wise and thematically. Like they'll say, your poetry is so abstract, I don't even know what you're doing, but I think it also intrigues them to see an American woman pushing boundaries in Spanish without apologizing for that artistic try. So it's been a very cool experience, and I've tried very hard to be in Frida Kahlo groups that are based in South America and Mexico to listen, not insert myself, but to observe and listen. And I can kind of check what I'm doing against what they're doing artistically and in their view of her and her art. Keeps me, I don't want to be an isolated Vermonter just kind of winging out Kahlo poems. I want to be plugged in as best as I can to try to, if I'm going to take on something like this, out of respect and out of humility that I'm not Mexican. And so I'm always aware of that. So yeah, I think it's improved greatly and become more elevated and more eloquent as best it can. I will never be where I'd like to be with it, but I feel like I'm happy with the work I've done to be able to hold my own, at least.
Can I interrupt here?
Yeah. Hi, Jody.
Can I?
My mother is
Hi.
Jody Horan. Another
I've
great
been listening.
of my poetry.
I've been listening the whole time, and it's just wonderful. But what I was going to say a little bit ago is that I've been struck with how Mexican your Spanish is.
Mhm.
It just rolls, and I think that's what is so soothing about the little bits that come in. It's beautifully done, and I had no idea that you made that effort to go to speaking with Mexican and with people who knew Frida and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to say thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you for saying that. And Jody speaks Spanish, but she primarily became fluent in Honduras, right? You have a slight
No, in Cuba.
In Cuba, sorry.
With Cubans, yeah. And then
too than the Mexican.
as a kid, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
as a 13, 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So
And luckily working with Jorge, although he's Costa Rican, is very good with language, and he knows the difference between Mexican Spanish and South American, any type of Spanish. So we would edit very specifically toward the Mexican, as to not offend, as to get the idioms right and all that good stuff. So, and he knew Chavela Vargas, who was very close friends with Frida. So he had a really direct connection to her lifetime, and it's just, he really just has always been immersed in her world. So it was a great connection to meet him and have that help. But thank you, Jody. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. I'm still here. I'm just going to mute my face and listen to what goes on. All right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I found the Mask Volume 2. I have so many versions of this manuscript on my computer, and I had one up that, because this one was kind of added later in the process, I think, right? Okay, so this one's called The Mask Volume 2. I want the voices to cease shushing me. The dull walls, undulating motion, Rats, doves, don't bother with these moments, but death does, calling out for me. I want the voices to know that rabbits do make noise, but not just only when they are dying. Same with humans. Our souls shriek. We do throughout life. Yet listen to the way we are quietest in death, just like stillborn babies. We succumb to the rocking alien woman, broke, dying. Para atrás, camioneta de la muerte, que incómodo, camino final. Bring me to the fire. I keep my eyes on the Mexican sky. I am not afraid of pain. I am ready and I want to die. You can even place me on the spire, still alive. I will not scream. I will surround myself with pain from my memories, and this will feel like nothing to me. A man falls, breaks his arm. The taste of this, familiar, quiet. He is screaming in agony. He did not follow the rules, nor did I. And for this, we succumb.
Excellent. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you.
Do we have
that-
another question from anybody? Not at this point.
Mhm.
I've got one, I think.
Go on, Hank.
Darling.
Ellie, when did you first meet Frida? What was it that first struck you? Was it a painting or a story, or do you remember?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in college out in Oregon. And I can't remember what course. I know I took like an art appreciation class, and I imagine I saw her there. But I think it was more like when I probably took like so, Latino literature class is more like I'm thinking, and saw her. And I remember being so struck by her art, never went out of my head. Probably some of the first ones I saw were like the corset spine, La Columna, and the wounded deer. So she was always on my mind, but then it wasn't until my MFA where I took an ekphrastic course, and I was allowed to kind of pick out whatever art I wanted to practice with. And of course, I knew I wanted to work on hers. And I did a few, and the rest is history. So as soon as I graduated, I was like, I know I'm going to do a book on this. I know I'm going to do a book of a collection of her art. Yeah. I feel like once you see her work, you don't just kind of walk away and forget it. It stays with you persistently in the back of your mind. Thank you, Ankh. Yeah.
Excellent.
Mhm.
How do you feel about taking on such a popular culture icon? Does that weigh heavy on you, Ellie?
Yeah, I'm aware of it. But I only really became aware of just how current she has reemerged as. I mean, she's everyone's idol. She's a pop culture figure now. When I first started writing self-portrait, I didn't realize the extent of that. But it doesn't really change my mission, because I wasn't thinking like, I'm going to do something on Frida because she's really popular, and so hopefully it'll sell books. That would never crossed my mind. It was more like, this is an artist that I revere and always have, and this is a tribute to her. This is going to have less to do with me and much more to do with her and her life. And I'm going to be a secondary witness and give her the mic one more time. So that has always been my goal. I would do another book. I mean, I just enjoy writing them. I really do. And when I have writer's block and I don't know what to write from my own mind, I know that I could go Google her and find a painting I've never noticed before and write. And I don't think that will ever end. So I think it's kind of an endless well for me of the challenge of it, which I enjoy so much. And then the product, when they work out, it makes me exceedingly happy and proud of myself for channeling that. So
We have spoken about that, haven't we? I mean, I say this with half a smile because you kept sending me work, and it was of good quality, but we were filling a chapbook, and we had a full chapbook.
I had this real obsession with this book. I wanted it to be perfect and the best thing I could possibly send you. And I had a very hard time accepting that I had done that. And so I kept staying up late, like, what can I write that is going to really blow Alan away, that he'll say, oh my God, yes, that has to be in there. And I couldn't let it go until you said, okay, that's the cutoff. But I
Yeah.
really kind of agonized over it in a way that I haven't with most books. You know, most books you kind of know when they're done and you go, okay, good, I'm done. And this one, I think if you hadn't stopped me, I would have just kept trying. I was in a challenge, you know, a sad place in my mind and in my head. And it was like, I didn't trust that I was good enough. I had really lost my confidence for a while there.
Hopefully I can speak to everybody here. I certainly think it's good.
Thank you.
Certainly happy with the finish.
It's a really scary thing when you lose your nerve as a poet and you think that you've lost your spark, and you just think, that's it for me. Well, I had a good run, you know? And so coming back with you took a lot of trust in you telling me, this is good, honey. This is okay. You're okay. It's going to be fine, you know? Because I really didn't trust my own voice at all. So having it out now and reading it to you guys and have people say, yeah, I like it, is hugely soothing and reassuring to me, because I really agonized over this one. So
I'll ask once again, have we got anything else from anybody who would like to know something specific?
thank you, Gary. So sweet. You guys are so supportive. I appreciate it.
Okay, not at this point. Then it might be nice. We've been
It's nice.
nearly an hour in, aren't we? Do we need a
Yeah.
break? Do we
We do
need
a
a
quick
break, or are
break.
we okay?
I might take a quick break if people don't mind.
It's fine.
And then
Perhaps we can come
wanna
back
hear
after the break
thoughts.
and listen to a couple from everybody and finish with yourself. How's that?
sounds wonderful.
Everybody
Yeah.
happy?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay here. I'll just pause the recording and we can
Right. I'll be back
talk
shortly.
freely.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Mwah. I love you.
Okay, welcome back for part two. We've all been away and watered ourselves. I think that's needed, isn't it? I would imagine Ellie needed a drink. A lot of speaking. You know, trying food, it can be a difficult thing. And we said before we broke that I was going to open the floor up to other people who wanted to read, and I have a short list of people who I spoke to ahead of time tonight. And Carrie is at the top of that list. So Carrie, are you happy to read for us?
Sure.
Wonderful.
I wasn't expecting to be the first one here. All right.
You've got something ready.
Yeah, I've got something I've got something right here actually. Okay. So this is from my forthcoming book. It's coming out with Verse One Press, and that's in January. The next morning, I woke and went to work the same as any other day. The man on the telephone wanted eyeglasses. We ate burritos, touched hands, and you seemed like you might stay. He had been told that he could see for free. I was apologetic. We wrapped around each other, and you had been warned that this was what the end would be like, that our bodies would unravel within one another. I know your call center is in California, fucking bimbo. Did I de-escalate or just slam the figurative receiver? I think we were supposed to stay calm for hangups. I was dead last night. What did it matter what I said to the man on the telephone? If he only knew how thick my thighs, how gray-laden my locks, how I curled into a great ball of sordid, flowing light beside your fading love. Well, the sticky note I had written for myself with its two smiling mouth, the obvious hang in there baby feline, the felt koala full of little beans stared down at me from his workspace shelf, with little bead eyes. I felt better. I felt less dead in the cubicle. I was not stuffed. I wondered how to keep pretending life when I knew that I must be gone. The next morning I woke and went to work the same as any other day. I knew the gypsum dotted ceiling of the office space wouldn't blink irregular with my own heartbeat lessening. The next morning I woke and there was no work. I howled into the hollow space of the little third floor walk-up. I waited for Mrs. Owl to come sing me from the high tree. I reflected light in her eyes, the cold decision to slice me from his life. The flood night air floated through a yellow curtain from IKEA, in the cold way that my heart refused to thud in quantum space. I went into the living room and stared down the ceiling fan hard. I thought, it's not the end, my only friend, the end, just an end. I lick my eyeball, feel cooling blood course. I could scramble over the desert rocks of this afterlife, heartless as I was.
I very much enjoyed that, Carrie.
Wow. Yeah. Carrie, you always blow us away.
Was
I
that
like my
a
Bible.
Jim Morrison reference right at the end?
So good.
I couldn't have missed it, could I?
No, you better not.
You said that was from your forthcoming collection with Rare Swan. Excellent.
Yeah, that's going to come out in late January.
Wonderful.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, from Rare Swan, I've got Marcel's name on the list here. Do you have something, Marcel? That was a shock. You said perhaps you would. Are you not ready?
I am ready. Of course, I'm ready. Yeah, I did say perhaps. So that's nice that perhaps is definitely. How exciting. Delighted to be here. Congratulations, Ellie, again, for your another wonderful collection.
Thank you, sweetheart.
That's right. I've got, oh, it's very dark now. I've finally read something. I've got a little poem that came from a workshop that I went to that Ellie ran actually about prose poetry, which was phenomenal and unlocked lots of little things that line poetry didn't really do for me. So I'm very excited to know about this new kind of form for me. And this is called The Dust is Building or Settling. The dust is building or settling, I've let it. In the corners and nooks and all those places I was taught were special. Sun concealed, shadow permitted. The window is cleaned by a branch outside, bobbing in the breeze, brushing transparent. If I crouch down slightly, as if listening to a small whisper, I can just about see the sky.
That was as short as one of mine.
Always short, always tiny.
I enjoyed it though.
They're
Lovely
so
stuff.
good. She's found her thing. Marcel has like these short little prose tiddlers that just take your breath away, you know. So proud of you.
A wonderful addition to the team at Rare Swan, who I'm fortunate enough to be working with as well. But it's not about me. Next on my list is Amanda, but I don't think she's made it with us yet, whether she will or not. So perhaps we'll come back to her if she appears. Is Robert here? I don't think he is he?
No.
I could have sworn I admitted him earlier. Maybe not. Okay. In which case, Ank, are you happy to read?
Yeah, sure, I will.
That's where we all pretend that we don't have something prepared when we really do.
I absolutely did not. But I did think of one when you kindly asked me to. Ellie, congratulations on this book. It's just beautiful to see people celebrating it. I was one of the ones that was lucky enough to read it in advance, and it's just such beautiful work. The way you blur her story into your story, it's so deeply affecting, and nobody does it quite like you.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Okay, I think I'm going to read a poem that I was lucky enough to work with Ellie extensively on my own book really recently, and this poem was one that I wasn't certain about leaving in the book, and she felt really, really strongly about it. So I think it's probably a good one to read now. It's called A Foal Takes Shelter Wherever It Stands. At the end of that street, that field, eye high with weeds, a sanctuary for lost horses. Sad horses were snapped crayons to country kids, but the bones of the old villa also haunting that field, pure myth. In one room, ectoplasm, the huge pale ghost of a moulded plaster ceiling turned to dust. You spoke to me only because I always had some limb or another in a cast, which meant gruesome and intriguing, so I was not unlike the lure of a derelict house. And the plaster cast I fashioned from ghosts and rainwater for you was heavy and convincing. In a thing abandoned, the weight of the fear it will happen again lives deep in the struts. You coveted what was broken more than once, and I pretended your dad was mine even when he was shouting about your arm. It was one of many bargains we didn't voice, a couple of mouths busy grazing, beasts unshod and unclaimed. I heard you never escaped that town and never broke a thing. I never went back, and I don't know what would be worse, a new house sitting whole on a grave, or a completely empty field with not a horse in sight.
Yeah, that one gets me every time. It really does.
I know you and your horse poems, Ellie, so it was the right one to work.
Yeah. It's the
So
horse,
gentle.
but it's all of it though too. It's everything. The broken crayon, the broken bones, the broken everything.
Thank you very much, Hank. Wonderful stuff. So gentle and so powerful simultaneously.
Thank you.
Now, I've had a request from John as well to read if John's happy. John, is that Doro?
Hi,
Ready?
John. Yeah.
We've not met before, John. Do you want to
We
tell us a
have.
little bit about yourself?
Well, I taught high school science for 30 years and lived to tell about it. And I met Ellie through my poetry friend, Beth Gordon, and she's in the animal part umbrella. And I've met Ellie in person. She comes here to St. Louis often, and we celebrated Lisa Kelly's book in June, and that was the last time that I saw Ellie in person.
Yeah.
So,
But we're
yeah.
going to see each other in March. We're going to see each other in Philadelphia.
But we always have a good time reading, and I keep saying that your books, your works get better than the previous one. And so you finally blew my mind on this one. You know, the others were great, but anyway, I appreciate you and love what you do.
Thank you, darling.
This poem is fresh. It's called Domesticus Tranquilis. I like towns whose streets are named for trees, elm, olive, cypress, their canopies spreading tender clutch above the rooftops of homes that pulse with life. Sleepy drivers leaving protected carports before the sun infuses its muted light through uncurtained windows. Robust Colombian wafting through thumb-sized holes in neglected corners that someone forgot to patch again last summer. The silent stuffed cheeks of the gray mouse who just left her evidence in a torn bag of snacks, potato chip crumbs strewn throughout the dresser drawer, squirrels tight rope skittling across sagging utility lines like gravity doesn't matter, and teenagers waking up like zombies in tattered, smelly nests from wee hour escapades, praying it's the weekend with a car of their own. I like to drive down tree-lined streets and make believe that I am one of them, just for a day, looking up into naked branches at a gray-white sky, lifting my foot off the gas, waiting for the fog to lift, for the other foot to drop. It always does. I like the way that some of them are labeled to let you know what it is. It's genus and species, always in italics, since everyone speaks Latin these days. Acer rubrum, Quercus rubra, Picea pungens. It's paramount to be able to classify things and put them in their places, like leaves. It gives us some sort of short-term power, a way to complicate the uncomplicated. I like how the man on Sycamore Street is always grilling, except early in the morning when he's probably at the market selecting his meat of the day. The trees above his house are always yellow in the summer and are the first to fall in August. Maybe they can't breathe. And when I go into the city, it makes me sad to see trees lined up against glass and chrome buildings, forced to grow in chemical soil where noise from the interstate never stops. They miss the rooftops and dogs that bark down the street in the fog, the sounds of the school bus opening its hungry mouth to swallow children until 3 o'clock, when once again it spits them out at 254 Oak Avenue. Thank you.
JD, I love your poem so much.
Thank you so much.
You're
I love
awesome.
yours too.
I love yours. I love yours.
Well done.
Yeah, such an original voice, you know.
Yeah, genuinely beautiful. Really, really enjoyed. Where can we find your work?
Oh, it's out in about 100 journals. I have a chapbook coming out next year, 2022, and it's a chronicle of my relationship with food. It's called This My Pie Hole and Other Related Tidbits. And it will be out, Sledgehammer, UK journal,
Yeah.
took it and said, we like it, so we'll see.
Yeah,
Wonderful,
it's
thank you.
exciting. Mm-hmm.
John, you were the last on my list of open micers. So if I may, I'll read, I've got a couple. I'm going to preface this. This was supposed to happen a week ago. We were going to do this on the 4th of December. That's what we had planned. I lost my nan right at the end of November. She's been ill for a long time, so please, nobody feel sad or that they have to say, sorry, Alan, we were expecting it. We're very accepting that this thing happens. What I want to do, though, is read a poem, not one of mine, but a poem by Rupi Kaur, which I'm going to be reading at her service next Tuesday. I haven't read it in front of anybody before, so you are my guinea pigs, and I want this to go well, so it goes well next Tuesday. It's important to me. And then I'll read something of mine to try and elevate the mood. Okay, but if that's okay, and people happy.
Absolutely.
It's called Funeral. When I go from this place, dress the porch with garlands, as you would for a wedding, my dear. Pull the people from their homes and dance in the streets. When death arrives, like a bride at the aisle, send me off in my brightest clothing. Serve ice cream with rose petals to our guests. There's no reason to cry, my dear. I have waited my whole life for such a beauty to take my breath away. When I go, let it be a celebration, for I have been here, I have lived, I have won at this game called life. Well, I managed to get through it without any tears, which is a success. It's a wonderful poem. I worked very, very hard to try and find things that weren't depressing. I've written can we call it an ekphrastic collection? I'm not sure. Ank, I think, has read some of these because they were inspired by the work of Jim Morrison, but I'm not sure. I certainly don't go to the extents and the depth that Ellie does. I read a lot of his work, and this is what came of it. I'm going to read you a poem which is a little bit more about me, or says a little bit more about my work. It's called Nighttime Men. Fleshy shadows and a slide of curves in pinto light, shock of nylon legs in pent taxis, the shriek of motels and token girls, infinite freedom of frenzied sin, riding hands of hot coal sex, daylight yips like smashing glass, sheepskin dawn, childhood slain. Okay, that's Nighttime Men. That book doesn't have a home yet. We'll see if it finds one eventually. Okay.
I love those Jim Morrison ones. I think they're really great. I think if you're writing about a person and their music, to me, that's ekphrastic.
Yeah.
You know, it is, because it doesn't have to be about a painting. It can be about, a song, anything. It can be anything. So I think that's very cool.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say, John.
Yeah.
Okay. We're here for Ellie, aren't we? Ellie, have you got anything to read, perhaps from elsewhere, to give us a flavour of your wider work?
Sure. Well, let's see. I can read something from the first self-portrait. You guys have heard me read a lot of Sylvia Plath, I feel like. I could read one of my poems of Fiona Apple. Those are ekphrastic musically.
I'd be interested to hear one of the Fiona Apple ones.
Yeah.
I would too.
Okay, I'm gonna look those up. They're a bit heavy, but because Fiona Apple's music is pretty heavy duty. And she is very much a poet in her own right. I mean, her song lyrics are insane. Like, if you've ever, go listen to her, but look at the lyrics as she sings, because you're just like, dude, it's poetry. It really is. So she inspires me. And she's had a lot of pain in her life, that's for sure. So this is a book I've been working on. It's titled Apple. I don't know what to do with it. I don't have a good plan, but stay tuned. So this one is called Make Your Move, based on her song that was, I think, also called Make Your Move. And so for these, because I didn't have art, I would just listen to the song many, many times. And I would often write it with the song in the background, just immerse myself the same way I did with Frida, except with a song. Make your move. Love, I used to love the way your fingernails ran like tracks over my skin. Each time I came, you went farther, deeper. The wound's a diary of you, my flesh, a punch to the gut. I now know this is not real love. I should not have to fear your tongue, your touch. You demote me. In your head, just a friend. I despise friends. I reap nothing. My shriveling face blue, blackened torso, the red velvet scars, crimson fork tines, evidence for now. For the only gift you ever gave me. I open a vein, I watch. How the azure drip flashes to fire when it hits air, as it drips like loss, brave testimony, or my elbow. I'll do one more Apple one if that's okay.
I know, Ellie, that night that we met, I also met Dave Hanlon, and he's a big fan of Fiona,
Right.
isn't he? Is that where this has come from, perhaps?
Well, I knew he
conversation.
approved of this very much. When he heard I was doing some Apple poems, he was very excited. So if this goes anywhere, I'm going to be having him blurb it. And I haven't sent him this whole book yet, but I certainly will. And yeah, he is definitely an inspiration for it, because he was like, absolutely, you have to do that. So yeah, let me just think which one. One more. No. Sorry. Okay, I'll do this one. It's called I Know. Using the crowbar on me, I am more tired than angry with you, endlessly waiting. I'm aware you don't love me the way you love the Scarlet Lady out your back door. I'm shaking alone, only the veins in my forehead pulse, applaud my effort. God damn it, will you notice me? And if I could scream, would it blow a hole through my neck, swirling and flowing like blood? She seems so lazy. It's cool and blue. It's a slow fuck like jazz. Go on, look in the crater. Lick, suck, swim. Come out to eat her. Go on, baby, work with me sinister. For 3 eyes make our monster. The tender plot of my belly, 2 to splatter recklessly like your fingers across my face. So if you touch me, be sure to bury the pink petals. Tie me up fast, faster, oh baby, if you could only see me now on the floor, a slumped fist after the show, you'd know how I hate you. When you suck her, you'd know to hold my wrists as I come to ravage you, to tell you, the tender petal of tongue in my mouth, how much I hate you. There's my apple. Right?
Wonderful stuff. Billy, was there anything else that you wanted to speak about in particular?
I wouldn't mind. I wanted to. So I often, in each of the books, I've given Diego Rivera one poem. And I wouldn't mind reading that, because I like the challenge of that. You know, he was, you can't have a story about Frida without him, but you can smite him a bit and put him in the corner. But I love the idea of trying to write in his voice to her, speaking to her. So I'd like to do this one, and it's from a painting that was called Nude with Beads by Diego, a portrait of her that he had. Para Frida con tanto amor, Diego. Succulent woman, I am in awe, in debt to you, amor de mi vida. I am your slave. I live only on this earth to love you. You are my sun, rainbow, storm, sombra, muerte. I am nothing if I am not in your arms, reina. Mi reina, escucha, como si fuera la última vez que oigas mi voz. No puedo vivir sin ti, vivo solo para ti. Aunque tus piecitos, diferentes cada uno a otro, parecidos como nuestros, uno tan enorme, la otra delicada, bastante femenina. One deformed, injured at times beyond recognition, one to mend her, to bring her back from the dead. And in saying all this, hermosa, I take your hand. I place mine at the nape of your neck, the other under your chin. I lift your mouth to mine. Tonight you are mine, mi reina, for this life and the next. You are mine, you are mine.
Anybody who is reading along with that one might have noticed that there were a few lines in the middle that were edited back to English, precisely because of that conversation that we had earlier.
Right, because I went ahead and read the whole Spanish stanza, which isn't in the book, but
no,
you know.
no. But I remember seeing it the first time, and it's not it was about that conversation that we had earlier about
It
whether
was precisely that. Like I would lose my reader right there in the middle, but hopefully I didn't lose y'all, because
you didn't lose any listeners, I don't think, and that's the relationship, the balance, isn't it? That we we were looking to strike. I think we've done that.
Yeah, right. No, and that poem just needs to be translated fully into Spanish because it's worthy of that. I think it deserves its own full translation. So I'll talk to Jorge about that. But
I know
wanted-
that when we had Ank's launch event recently, that we spent a long time talking about the cover. I'm not going to do that tonight because we didn't have a specific cover artist. It was just an idea that we spoke about, wasn't it? And we really tried to capture something that was Latin and that spoke of that purely. And all of our work, all of the design work and the layouts of our books is done by an old college friend of mine. And I think it's important that we give him a little bit of a shout out tonight. He's not from the poetry community. He can't stand poetry, and he's not afraid.
Isn't that funny? But yet he
not at all. But he works very, very hard. He's very, very good at what he does. So I think it's important that I give a little bit of a shout out to Andrew or Uncle Social, who's available for work on digital platforms and book layouts now. Apparently, he has to teach himself just for me. But
he did do a lovely job, though. Absolutely.
He has. Yeah, I'm going to leave the floor back open to you, unless we have anybody else who wants to read again.
Well, my friend Walid made an appearance. Walid, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi,
Hello, Ellie.
Walid. So this is Walid Abdallah. He's calling in from Egypt and didn't want to miss this launch, but he is working also at this time. So I wanted to invite you to read a poem if you'd like to. Walid and I have been friends a long time, and he writes beautiful, beautiful love poetry. And of course, in his second language, which is astonishing to me always. So if you'd like to read something, you certainly may.
Okay, that's great.
Yay.
I'm ready.
I know, thank you. So nice.
Okay, thank you for your kind invitation.
Yeah.
And congratulations on your book.
Thank you very
I'm
much.
very happy to see you.
Thank you.
Shall I read now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. It is a poem entitled On Our First Date. It says, on our first date, I raise the time. I can't wait. I have a new feeling, a bit strange, offering you eternal love that will never change. You are the love I have always been looking for. You are the true love I have never felt before. In front of your eyes, I'm speechless. Listen to my heart beats as words can't express. When reality has become better than fiction, and you are far more beautiful than every prediction. A princess straight from heaven you really are. I am holding a dream I have always thought very far. I am enthralled by your eyes and their magic, a time when I lose all my reason and logic. I drown into the sea, the deep sea of your eyes. Believe your heart, it never lies. You have become all the people I'd like to know. You are the secret of happiness. You are the clue. Let's start our love journey at forever, a journey of love that ends at never. You grow a rosy flower in my heart that never withers. You gave my heart wings and feather. I no longer live on earth. You gave me a love knows no death. I give you a promise that will never break. I am yours forever. I will always be there for your sake. My eyes no longer see but you. Only you paint my life and draw. Every new year and I am yours and you are mine. Every new year and we are lovers, model and sign. Every new year and I love you again and again. Every new year and we are in love and will always remain. Every new year and you are all my flowers and trees. Every new year and you are all the air I breathe. Every new year and we are together. Every new year and we belong to each other. Thank you so much. I hope you like it.
Thank you, Ali. That's beautiful. All
Thank
your
you so
poems
much.
are beautiful. And if you are on Facebook, Walid often posts his published and unpublished on Facebook, and it's always exciting to see your new work. I feel like I've seen that one before. Have I seen that one before? Or was
I
that
think
new?
I don't know if you saw it or not.
Yeah, well, it was beautiful. Thank you very much for coming. It means a lot to me.
Thank you so much for your invitation.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
I like your Spanish poetry too, but I don't understand Spanish.
No,
I
that's
write
okay.
Arabic poetry. I write
Yeah.
Arabic poetry. Do you
Yeah.
want to hear?
I think we can.
Arabic poetry.
Why not?
Do you have yeah, sure, why not?
Why not?
It's a multilingual reading.
Okay, I read you a short poem in Arabic. It is called تعالي or come in English. It says تعالي أحبك لليلى أخبرك فيها بكل ما كان. بكل ما كان يجب أن يقال. تعالي أحييك بقبلة أهديك فيها ألف مقال. تعالي أضمك كطفلة وأحمل عنك كل الأثقال. تعالي أموت فيك لأحيا ولا حاجة لي بعدها لخيال. تعالي أحبك لمرة أكتبك فيها كقصيدة ليس فيها للوداع مجال. It is a short poem in Arabic and I translated it in English.
That's so cool. Do you want to read the English for us so we can?
Okay, I read it in English.
Yeah.
It says, come to love you for a night, telling you everything right. Come to greet you with a kiss, which 1,000 articles fail to express. Come to hug you like a child, and lighten the burden you hide. Come to die in you to survive, at a point where fancy can never arrive. Come to love you for once and make you my poem, where separation will never bloom. That's it.
That's so cool. That's so neat to get to hear that in the two languages.
That's
Amazing.
another language that we can tick off on the
Yes,
broken
we're
span.
trying. Yes.
Your
Arabic.
Spanish, Arabic now, and we had David Butler reading in Gaelic
Right.
months ago, which was wonderful as well.
Thank you. I am going to send
be
it.
able to hear you could hear the refrain and the repetition in that poem and recognize the poetic side of it, even without understanding anything.
It's really cool. Yeah.
Thank you so much
It
for
was so
seeing
neat.
me.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool.
If we go back over our open micers, did anybody want to read again? Parry?
Jude or Ray, did either of you want to read today?
I
Sure, I
could
can
read-
read something if you'd like me to.
Yeah. How about Jude and then Ray?
Sure.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I would love that. Casey, did
was-
you have any interest in reading too?
Yes, I would like to read. Thank you.
Good. Okay, so Jude, Ray, and Casey. Fabulous. Thank you so much. Hello,
Okay.
hello.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Thank you for coming.
Oh, you're always welcome, Ellie. Always a joy. And this is a great time, on the weekends and when it's afternoon for you and it's still not midnight here is great.
Yeah, right. It
Right.
works well for everyone except New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah.
A team was civilized.
Okay, I will read. Actually, it's kind of an old poem, although I've recently revised it. And two of my students from my last job have a magazine called Leavings, and this one is going to be in that sometime in the not too distant future. So it has a second lease of life. And I think maybe it kind of fits with the mood of the evening. It's called View from a Locked Room. I see reflections of insanity in window glass. Yard shadows coalesce. Distended fruit depends from every tree. Out of emptiness, I conjure cardiac anomalies. Tortured branches twist. My wrist pulse is percussive, blood and gristle in a fight for width. Gate bangs a whip-smart gust of yesterday's excessive trust in wit. I pace, believing in infinities of cherry trees. Their wounds ooze sap, a soft-barked army waiting for the axe. But underground, their roots commune. My solitary cell contracts. Window bars resemble railroad track. In a locked room, my head rests against dead wood. I will, when orchard noises cease, send to the city for seed. Thank you.
Dude, your poetry I wrote, it's so amazing. And also it's just, I think the word I was thinking of is like mesmerizing, like the way you read, but also the softness of your poems. There's just something very, very soothing about it, even if the subject matter is difficult. And I love that about your work. Really, really do.
Thank you, Ellie.
Huge talent, my dear. How is the move? How are things settling?
Oh, well, settling, you know. Yeah, moving twice in this within 6 months is not my idea of a good time, but I'm finally settled in a place of my own and beginning to make it feel like home. Thank you for asking. I still feel like a stranger in my own country though, so.
Yeah, that might take some time, I suppose, huh?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I really want to feel at home anywhere, to be honest. I'm not sure I would be the same poet if I felt at home someplace.
Yeah, maybe that's okay now to just be floating, untethered, something.
Yes, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, untethered, right? Because I often feel absolutely in ball and chains where I am. I think I would love that feeling.
That's sort of
what I love about
sort of similar to what David Bowie said about creating art, isn't it? When if you just go out far enough into the sea, you see your feet aren't touching the floor anymore. That's when you create the best work.
Wonderful quote. Well, thank you so much for coming. It means so much to me, June. And it's wonderful to see you always.
Likewise, likewise.
Yeah.
Are we going to move to Ray?
Yeah.
Sure.
And just a quick hello to Ray. So I know Ray, he's a fellow Vermonter who goes to the Otter Creek Poetry Workshop, which I've been going to now for over a year, and just writes wonderful poetry and is so supportive of other poets. And just, I'm very, very proud and honored to be your friend, Ray.
Oh, thank you, Ellie. This has been a wonderful afternoon here in Vermont.
Good.
And thanks to everybody. This is a short poem called A Common Language. Pretend you love me, I can do the rest. Don't say yes when no will get you what you want. Say maybe. If is good. I've always liked perhaps. As song is to harvesting, I am to you. Say dream and gardening. I had a canvas tent and pitched it in a lake. Say float, regret. This is where we are, what we've been given, if you like. A small bead strung upon a golden thread. Say stars and galaxy. Say here. The world is the only word I have to thank you with. I have no other vowels or consonants. Thank you.
That was lovely.
Ray is so talented and he's so original in his work. You know, whenever he reads one, it doesn't sound like anyone else. It's very Ray. I think that's wonderful.
Thanks, Alex.
If I may take this opportunity to read something now, it's not one of my poems. It is, however, a poem of one of my students at a college that I'm teaching at. I don't teach English literature. I teach English language, predominantly to people who have sort of fallen through the net where school